was a good interview. There was things I couldn't have paid him to say some of the stuff he said. He has swept into office every morning. The only thing you don't know about him is what color tie he's going to wear. But you can rest assured that with his doors thrown open, when he comes to work in the morning, on his left sleeve he's wearing full frontal transparency. On his right sleeve he's wearing his oath of office. Ladies and gentlemen, the South Carolina Treasurer, Curtis Loftis.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, especially a nice day. I remember Inauguration Day, we were on the other side of the State House. We on the stage were all warm and toasty. The sun was in our eyes, and the people who were watching us were cold and freezing. Then 2 weeks later, it was reversed. All of us here. So I want to congratulate those of you who keep coming back to the State House, no matter how bad the weather is. I want to thank Alan Olson for allowing me to come here today. It means a lot. Tea Party folks have been a lot better to me than I have been to y'all. I haven't been to enough of your meetings, and I haven't had a chance to help you like I'd like to. I want you to think about something. A friend of mine is, named Frank Luntz is a writer and a pollster. He's an author. He talks about communication. He talks about communication a lot. What he says is the most powerful word in the American language, in the English language, is imagine. Now, I never thought about that before, but he's polled it, he's tested it. He says if you can make a crowd imagine something, then it happens. So I want to steal what he said, and I want to tell you what I'm doing. I want you to imagine a South Carolina with lower taxes and less regulations. I want you to imagine a South Carolina that's transparent and accountable. I want you to imagine a South Carolina where your elected officials work harder and longer than you do. I want you to imagine your bureaucrats and your elected officials who trade self-service for public service. I want you to imagine, like so many of us here, that what we believe. I want you to imagine that selfless service to others is more important than self-service. And the Lord himself talks about that in the good book. These things we imagine we can make come true. These things, if our heart and our brain decides on them, we can make it happen. I want you to imagine, again, that we're a nation of men and not of laws. My friends, today, at parties like this, all around this state, at GOP conventions and other forums, people are imagining a South Carolina that's a better place. We can only get there with you folks. It's been 10 weeks since I was inaugurated. It's 10 weeks since I've been your treasurer. And I've learned a lot in 10 weeks, and I just can't tell you what I've learned. I had lunch, dinner the other night with Rand Paul, the senator from Kentucky. And Rand says, I came to Washington because I knew there were problems. When I got there, I had no idea the problems were. And of course I said to him, with your father, you didn't know how bad the problems were? And he agreed. He said he had no ideas. I came to Columbia, and I didn't have any idea how bad our problems were. Most of the important business of this state is conducted not just behind closed doors, but locked doors. And I can tell you who's not there. You and you and you. You are not in the room, you are not represented, and I don't care what people tell you. The lack of accountability and transparency is appalling. It won't be solved just by one law or a regulation. The House can't adopt a rule. That's not going to solve it. It has to be a mindset. You have to know that you people have a say. It's your money, it's your rights, it's your privileges. Have you ever thought about government, what it does? All we do here in this building and the 6 buildings behind here is we trade your rights, your privileges, and your money back and forth. Government has nothing on its own, and free people ought not to be treated like chattel. I want you to know what we've done since I've been in office. You know, we've been talking about transparency and accountability. Well, let me tell you some of the things we've done. I put my personal work schedule online, not just my public schedule, but every single appointment I have. If I meet with a lobbyist, if I meet with a senator or a representative, if I meet with a taxpayer, it goes on my calendar. I think it's important because in an election, I sold you my time and you bought my time. It's up to me to justify what I do, not the other way around. The state's involved in some complex litigation. litigation that's involved that is designed to get money back that we think was wrongfully taken from you. We put that litigation online. Not only do we put the litigation online, but we put the lawyers' compensation agreements online. We're the first people in the country to do something like that. We're going to do that and do more of it. Many of you have been following the problems we have with the Budget Control Board. People have been talking about getting a bigger room for years and years and years. And for our first meeting, we went to room 101 where we had about 150 people in the room and still had people outside. We moved to another room where we have about the same amount of people and people are lined up and down the hallways. If a government is important enough for us to do the business, you ought to know about it. And this is important. It ought not be done before we get in that room. We ought to have conversations and discussions about the Budget Control Board business in that room while you're there and not ahead of time. We've been talking, and I think we're probably the only treasurer's office in the country, we've been talking about putting out for bid, for competitive bid, the services that manage and safeguard and invest the billions of dollars that belong to you. We're going to put out a securities agreement that is worth $27 billion, that manages $27 billion worth of stocks. We're putting out banking RFPs that manage $30 billion of your money. We're putting out a College 529 program that manages $1.6 billion of your money. And why do we say this? Because the old days of cozy relationships and doing business with your friend has cost this state a lot of money, and we're going to manage your money properly. I want to ensure that you're going to be at the table at all of these places. We're going to be moving forward with our internet project so that we can get more of this information online. I'm sure that you're not going to bid on a $1 billion banking contract, but you just might want to know about it because it is your money. You should have a say. You pay the bills and you suffer the consequences. You should have a say. Now, state government is large, it's sometimes complex, it's oftentimes unwieldy. And I've said a fair amount of things that weren't flattering today, but I want to say something that is flattering. There are two groups of people who are pretty daggone good groups of people. And that's one, the taxpayers of this state. You represent a lot of them. You pay your bills. You go to work every day. You don't have time to be full-time in government, but you work hard, and we appreciate that. There's another group of people who work pretty hard. And that's not the highest elected officials and the bureaucrats. I'm not talking about those folks. They operate on the privilege of being here. But there are a lot of state employees, the clerk at DMV, the highway patrolman, the teacher. These people who don't work for a lot of money, they work day in and day out. And while politicians like me, while we come and we go, you can like us one day and throw us out the next day. That's the way it should be. I saw you clapping there. I want to take time to thank the people who make these things work. At the Treasurer's Office, we have 60 people who do a great job. They work hard. I'm the 5th treasurer in 4 years. Let me say that again. I'm the 5th treasurer in 4 years. So it's not exactly what you call an exclusive crowd, but there are lots of us, and the staff there has done a wonderful job. I want to leave you with this, and this is the most important thing I'll say the whole time I'm here, by far. The end of the legislative session is coming up. It's coming on as fast. It'll happen in a blink of an eye. Now is the time when serious watchers of government pay attention. The first 3 or 4 months of the session is kind of for show. A few things happen. But what I want you folks to do is people who are interested in what's happening in your country, I want you to pay attention. Don't listen to what somebody tells you about a bill. Don't read the headline and think you know what the bill's about. Don't even read the caption that goes along with it. Because what may be a bill to make the sun rise in the west is actually one to make it rise in the east. You just don't know. What I'm concerned about in the last month and a half of this session is that the game's going to change. It's going to change a lot. We're talking about bills that we think we like, and I have a feeling that by the time they get to where they're about to be laws, they're not going to be what we want. There's a lot of talk about restructuring. I campaigned on restructuring. I want restructuring. But I will not suffer politicians splitting up your rights and privileges, your money, like pirates over booty. We have got to make sure that value is created for you. We are free people, and this is important. What we've got to do is to make sure that the last 60 days of this session, that our will, your will, the will of your neighbors, is done. Do not believe anybody, believe it, find out for yourself. I have reason to believe that we need to pay very close attention. We must create value for the taxpayers, and we must not be lulled into a false sense of security. There are bad things in our government. I sit on the Budget Control Board, and I'm prepared to lose my seat in a skinny minute. But I do not want the baby thrown out with the bathwater. I do not want a restructuring bill that does nothing but send the great portions of government, that sends the money to the General Assembly and the headaches to the governor's office. We have got to have a bill that keeps us freer and safer and allows this government to get out of the way of business so we can create jobs. I thank you for the time, and I appreciate each and every one of you.